Thank you, everyone. Welcome to AutoWorkz Insights, our Thursday web show for Automation Works Institute. And we are so excited, since we do video gaming, it's like the core of our school. We really believe that eSports is the future and the way that the world is going. And so today we have an eSports authority who's going to talk about the industry and how to get into the industry and potentially how to be successful. And we'd like to welcome that speaker today, and that's Thomas Edwards. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Oh, fabulous. We're glad to have you in from LA. You brought some of that hot weather with you too.
Yeah, and hopefully the sun will come out at some point today.
We got your sun because we have it very sunny here in Michigan. But we're really looking forward to the esports conversation, because one of the things that I've noticed, because I go to a lot of esports competitions and things, I don't see a lot of African Americans participating. And so that was one of the reasons why we wanted you to hear today to talk about how the growth of the industry, how do you get in it? Because people play video games like crazy.
Yeah.
And how do you make money?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. Like, as someone who has gone to tournaments pre-COVID, there hasn't been a lot of African-American presence. And
why is that?
My instinct and like my intuition tells me that there's not enough accessible information to let us know that those opportunities are available, and that there actually can be a career focused on playing games. Now, I had to go through my own like life-altering experience to allow myself to be someone to enter in the esports industry, by just making the choice to be semi-pro and seeing where that takes me. But I remember as a kid, when I was growing up, I knew from my early teens that this was what I wanted to do. And I come from a Caribbean background. My parents are from Jamaica, so I'm first generation American. And they didn't understand that. They just saw video games as something to play, not learn, not benefit from, as a way to keep me inside and not out in the streets. Totally makes sense, right? But the idea of making games or making money from games, whether you're a designer, a producer, or a professional gamer, that just didn't make sense to them. So they just said, don't worry about the games, focus on your education, which I did. I ended up going to school actually for digital design with a focus on animation. Because I wanted to actually be a producer, a game producer. My dream was to be in Tokyo and to work for Sony Entertainment as a producer. And so went to college for that. And even then, I wanted to compete in video games. But at that time, which is now we're talking like 2003, 2004, the idea of getting paid for competitive gaming was not something that people thought could be taken seriously, right? And so eventually I had to put that dream to rest, because eventually I got into the real world. I stumbled upon my first profession and started my first business, and I allowed myself to be in the story of gaming is not something that you do if you're trying to build a business. That's a very juvenile or immature activity to partake in. You don't get any benefits from it. I just bought into that story. And meanwhile, I'm watching Twitch and
God, grow like a weed.
Yeah, right. And just the industry in general start to explode. And I'm seeing all different kinds of leagues pop up. NBA 2K. Madden was actually the first like televised competitive gaming experience that we got to watch on TV. ESPN and Spike Network, when it was around, was doing like the Madden type reality show where they had these guys on a bus and they would compete and live in a house and play with each other. But we also saw it in previous years in scripted episodes where there'd be people competing and playing in games. Grandma's Boy, for example, is a movie, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
And so the idea was there. We just didn't allow ourselves to truly have it, and we didn't really see that there was an opportunity here. Then, this was like 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, I saw Mark Cuban have a talk about how he's now shifting and investing billions inside of the eSport market. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What is happening? Then I'm seeing Robert Williams University being the first school to offer a scholarship for competitive gaming. And I was like, what? What is happening right now? And I'm looking around, and now today, fast forward today, eSports is a multi-billion-dollar industry that can grow to north of 20 billion in the next couple of years. Universities and colleges around the country are offering full paid scholarships for people to play games competitively. There are facilities on these campuses being built just for gaming.
I'm going to do one eventually.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
And now we have tournaments. I mean, Fortnite's been kind of the big thing. Last summer, it was played at Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York, right? North of New York, Astoria, I believe. And the person who won was in his teens and won the biggest payout in an esports tournament, which is $2 million, right?
Isn't that amazing?
For playing Fortnite, right?
Right.
Fortnite. And so it just made me realize, wow, like there's so much joy here that's being, there's so much opportunity here first, right? To actually monetize, whether you're a competitive gamer, a streamer, a coach like myself. If you are an investor, you can invest in a team, sponsorship, community. There's just so much opportunity available. But most importantly, the part that really tapped into me and what eventually saved my life was the joy. Getting that joy back and connecting to the passion that my first love, which was video games. No offense to my wife in the other room, but my first true love was video games, and being able to tap into that as a soon-to-be 35-year-old man and say, man, like I get to have this experience. I get to live this life. That for me was the more important thing. So I hope that answered your question, but I really wanted to share.
That's interesting because, I'm 53 and I still play games.
Yeah, right?
I'm like every day. And it's so funny because when people meet me in the business world, I'm so serious, they think. So when they say, you play video games, and like it doesn't compute. But I've been playing video games since Atari. And it's just my joy. I get stress reliever from it. I love it. So you're not going to take it from me.
Yeah.
I'll die with it, right?
Absolutely. It's a stress reliever. It's also, for a lot of people, a creative channel. It's a way to create self-expression and to become more confident. If you allow yourself, it actually can also help develop your social skills, your reaction ability. It keeps it sharp, right?
Yes.
Like your cognitive performance. There's so many things that I can speak to that like really helps you as an individual show up better in the world due to video games. And also, like, the military uses video games. The Medicare industry uses video games to help create better situations, right? And so this is not something that is news to people, right? Like, video games, it has its benefits and people are using them. My thing is, we can make gaming a part of our entire lives. Because the truth is, we're all gamers. We may not pick up a controller, right, or a joystick and call ourselves a gamer, but if you're looking through the newspaper and you're deciding to play Sudoku or play a crossword or maybe play a little mini game of how fast you can get to the grocery store and do your shopping, right? Like, you are a gamer at heart because you want to create experiences in your life that are designed to not just be fun, but to be a little bit competitive so you can feel that sense of fulfillment and achievement on the other side when that outcome comes to fruition. And so when we start to allow ourselves to embody this idea that we are gamers, we start to see things not just in esports, but outside of esports that can be more fun and be more fulfilling and still allow you to level up in a way, from a performance aspect, in a way that you never saw was possible.
See, but here's the thing. I don't think that people have a hard time admitting that they're gamers. I just don't think they want to admit it to other people.
Yes.
Because I was looking at the Entertainment Software Association, been reading the report for the last 3 or 4 years, and they say 65% of adults play some form of a game, a video game, whether it's mobile, whether it's console, whether it's computer. They just don't tell you.
It's mostly women. Like,
Yes, 52%. Isn't that
yeah,
amazing?
yeah, and like,
Yes.
and you know, I'm working on a book right now, and you know, I was asked by my literary agent, like, you know, how are women going to pick up this book? And I'm like, you don't realize that like the majority of the people who are playing right now are women.
and because of that, their children play.
Yes.
But they don't talk about it out loud. I mean, it's just like, it's kind of a hush hush, because it's almost like, oh, you think that I'm a juvenile, but really it's an adult, activity. And so that was one of the reasons we wanted you to talk about eSports, because eSports is an adult activity. I'm gonna tell you what blew my mind. I actually was watching this tournament in Beijing, right? This was like 4 or 5 years ago. And it had 80,000 people packed in a stadium. And that just blew me out, right? Which is what really got me. It's like, okay, I'm not the only one that likes these things, because there's 80,000 people who paid $100 plus to be packed in this stadium. So I've been following eSports a little bit. So last year, the League of Legends came to Detroit.
Yeah.
Packed the house.
Huge.
Now, I was able to go thanks to the sponsor Ford, thank you Ford Motor Company, who bought me a $300 ticket. But that just blew my mind that a ticket to watch somebody play video games was $300.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's mind blowing.
You just see the money. You see the money, and you see the opportunity. And then, like I said, like, we all want to get paid in some way, and I'm about that, because we need to eat. But it's more than just that. It's just the idea that we are waking up now to this idea that, to your point, adults are the ones who created video games, right? You know, and so for us, this is our legacy.
Yes.
You know, and now we get to project it out into the world for people to see the beauty, the art, the craft, right, of competitive gaming in such a way, you know, where you can still be competitive and have fun, right?
But how do you get into the industry? So that's the challenge, because, you know, I realized I met a guy who was from Madden NFL. He had won like $50,000. And I was trying to get him to tell me how he got in the industry, but he wouldn't really share. You know, he didn't want more competition, I guess. But how do you get into the industry to compete for these prizes?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep it as simple as possible, right? And so I'll start at the foundation. First, gotta have the game, right? The game is where you start from. What game are you playing? And what is the market for the game? Is it an up-and-coming game where you can see the trajectory of growth and popularity? One of the more recent games that have come out that has instantly become an esports game is Valorant. You know, by Epic Games.
Right.
Came out literally at the beginning of this month, and already they've had competitions where people are actually winning money from a game that just came out, right?
Okay.
Then you have more established games like League of Legends, Players Underground Battleground, Rocket League. Then there's also like the fighting game community, right? So Tekken, Street Fighter, Super Smash Brothers, right? Like, and then you have sports, right? 2K League, Madden, FIFA, right? Like, and these are global, right? The bigger ones are the global ones, right? And so choose your game. Which game is the one that you're gonna facilitate, right? And then what's your motivation? You know, because the motivation is very important. And motivation comes from two different sets of values. There's the intrinsic value, which is where you're doing it for the fun of it, right? You love the competition. You get satisfaction from your personal growth inside the experience. You want to contribute to the community at hand, you know? And then there's extrinsic value, which is like money, fame, or status, whatever. My thing is, extrinsic value will always undermine intrinsic value. And if you focus on the extrinsic value and you get it, the sustainability of your satisfaction will not last, because those things they just don't last. Like, as soon as if you become like the most, you know, for example, this person who, you know, won Fortnite will be around for a while, but who's to say it's going to be around forever, right? Epic Games just came out with Valorant, right? Who knows if that becomes the next thing? Like we have no idea, right?
Yeah,
And
you
so,
really don't. Mm-mm.
yeah, right. So just really being in it for the fulfillment and the joy and what it brings to you.
So
Now,
you really have to be obsessed about it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, you have
And,
to.
and it's because I actually met a young man who won a championship for Dota.
Yeah.
And he was saying to me that he plays 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
I was like, seriously? It's like a job. But he
Listen,
won $1.7 million. So 9 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was like, that is intense.
It is a lot.
It is so intense that he don't even have time to eat. So she brings food into him and drinks into him so that he can just keep practicing, keep practicing,
Yeah.
keep practicing.
And this is really important because, and I want to speak to those now. Listen, top people who get paid and are professional gamers, they get the part of their responsibility is to play, right?
Okay.
So they will be playing there's some people who play 10, 11 hours in a day. And there's two things I noticed about that. One is they're not, I mean, I guess there's a level of obsession, but it's more infatuation with the game. Because even when they lose or they're not playing well, they still find joy. And that was one of the big things that I learned and then now teach my clients is once you're in this experience and you're in it for the right reasons, there's no winning or losing. There's only winning and learning, right? Like there's no there's no failure there's no failure that exists anymore until you decide to stop playing the game, right?
Okay.
Without achieving your ambitions, right?
Okay.
And so that was the first thing. So even in losing, you're not experiencing it in the traditional sense. You're like, wow, there's something here I need to learn. And
Right.
then you go back, you double down and you go back into finding out what that is. The second thing is if you're starting out, you don't need to play that long. So for me, play that much every day. So one of the challenges that I created for myself was I'm a dad, and I run my own business. So, so for me, having that amount of time is actually not possible for me. So it's not about how much time you spend, it's how you spend that time. Being able to create containers and conditions and having support with you that allows you to maximize your time. And so when I first entered a tournament, which was actually last September, it was sponsored by Red Bull. It was down in the OC. My first tournament ever. Out of 117 people, I came in 33rd, which was amazing.
Wow! For your first tournament,
my first tournament, and my game is Tekken, so I'm in the fighting game community, right? So that was a big eye opener for me, and I was like, wow, like this, I can actually do well. And in subsequent tournaments, I gradually got better. And then the last in-person tournament I played in was at DreamHack in Anaheim. And I forget what place I came in, but I was one game out of making the top 8. So I think I tied for like 9th or tied for 10th or something like that.
Okay.
So and then it's now switching to in COVID now, I'm playing in online tournaments. But my last 3 tournaments, I came in third, second, third, first, and then I came in 5th in the last tournament. So clearly, like I'm getting better in these tournaments, and I'm actually able to make money now, which is great.
That's
right?
good. That's
right?
good.
That's great. Not a lot, but the experience of placing in a way that allows me to earn something, for me, was the bigger thing. It wasn't the amount. And it made me realize, wow, like it's actually working. It's not about how much time I spend. I'll tell you how much time I really spend. I mean, the most I might spend in amount of time, I might spend 8 hours in a week playing, right? So it's not a lot.
I spend 8 hours.
Yeah, right. Like 8 hours playing in a week, and that for me, that's a lot, right? That might be a slow week for me in terms of like other things going on in my life where, I choose to do that. I play at minimum 2 hours a week because I give myself a date night. And that's what I choose to do during my date night is to play video games, right? So I give myself at least 2 hours. But when I play, it's also what else I'm doing when I'm not playing and practicing, right? I'm looking at other gamers. I'm watching their streams. I'm looking through YouTube at tutorials and guides and matchup guides. I'm looking at other experts in the industry or other elite gamers. I'm seeing what they're doing, and I'm watching their competitions and their replays and seeing how they strategize against certain players. I'm downloading this information, and then when I go back into the game, it's just playing out in real competition.
Okay.
Right. And so
okay.
it's not always about the hands-on experience and the amount of time you put into it. You don't need to train that way. I mean, when you think about other athletes, yeah, they practice, but they spend a lot of time watching film, right? They spend a lot of time looking at scouting reports, right?
Okay.
They spend a lot of time taking care of their bodies, right, in order to be at that level. And that's where I tend to focus on, is because the skill will come together over time, but it accelerates when you do all the other things.
So pretty much you're studying the best of the best.
Yeah, you have to.
Okay.
Right? Like, think about, I'll give you a great example. LeBron James, right? He's this generation's greatest player.
Yes,
right?
he is.
In the summer, he spends time playing with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was spending time playing with Kobe. He was playing time with Jason Tatum, spending time with, you know what I mean? Like, he's learning so many different people to incorporate in his game, and obviously those are his counterparts, right? These are his colleagues, but also his competition, right? Like, that's what the community is all about, especially inside of gaming. People want more inclusivity in a way, and also at the same time, you have to also understand it's competitive, right?
Right.
So I don't blame him for not wanting to say how to get into the industry, because I think naturally we are looking to protect ourselves from, having other competition come in. But that's just the nature of how it works. So I would just say, like, it starts with practice, but it's more about studying, analyzing how the best people in the world do it, and start adopting some of those strategies, some of those habits over time. And then you start doing different things. You look for local tournaments where you can go on, for example, smash.gg. You can go on there, look for local tournaments. Most of them will be online these days. You got to know, like, what gear you should be playing with. PS4 and PC tend to have the most available tournaments. Like, I have Xbox, and I went as long as I could. Like, most of the tournaments that were in person only use PS4. And so when I went in that first tournament, I had to borrow my friend's controller and play with a PS4 controller for the first time.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, so that 33rd for me, coming in 33rd for me was bigger than just coming 34th. I played with a controller that I never used before.
Okay.
Right?
Which is scary.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the little groove in your hand yet. Okay.
Exactly. I never played in person like that before. And, like, I also didn't even have a cord to connect my my controller in. You know what I mean? So I had to borrow someone's cord.
Oh my God! You were totally unprepared.
Oh yeah, I was totally that guy. I was totally that guy in there, But then I was like, oh, like, so then when I went to DreamHack Anaheim, I got like a converter from PS4 to Xbox One. I was able to use that controller. But even that, people were like, oh, that's weird. Like, you're using an Xbox controller, right? Like, just knowing what your gear is. And for me, I just realized that, like, because there aren't any in-person tournaments, I'm now, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have to enter some PS4 tournaments. So I just got myself a PS4, and now I'm gonna be using both controllers to figure out how can I compete on each platform, right? So it's just knowing the gear, right? And having that available to you. Then it's practice, and then it's just joining communities. So Discord, right? Discord.app. Go in there, look for different communities. It's like, so for those who don't know what Discord is, it's kind of like Slack, but specifically for like gamers, so you can search different communities, get invited into them. There's sub communities. Like, for example, for me, like in Tekken, there's different communities, and then you have communities for your specific main character that you like to use. Right?
Oh, wow. Okay. So they really subdivide. Okay.
Oh, totally. And then they go into the character of like frame analysis, combos, like the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole thing. It goes that deep, And so finding those communities, playing with them, interacting with them, and becoming that player that people want to play with or play against, So that way.
That means you have to be good.
Yeah, I mean, to a level,
I don't
right?
want to play you if you're not any good.
Yeah, right. Like you want to get to a level where you
Mhm.
feel comfortable with the competition that's coming your way, right? And then ultimately you join these tournaments that most of them will be streaming on Twitch, and you just start putting yourself out there more and more, and you start building relationships, building communities. And then the last thing I'll say to your question is, if you then are at a place where you feel comfortable, you can go to a place like, for example, I found this site called, looking at it now, teamfind.com is literally a network you can go to where you can find amateur teams to join based on different games.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, and usually they're the popular games, right? So we're talking like Warzone, League of Legends, PUBG, Fortnite, Rocket League, but still, like, you can go there, find other teams to join. You can find pro teams. You can find coaches, right? Like, start surrounding yourself with the people that you can feel help elevate your presence, not your status. There's a difference, but your presence inside the community, so people can start seeing what you're made of.
That's interesting. So that gets you kind of into the community.
Yeah.
But how do you make the transition from being an amateur to even a semi-pro or pro?
Yeah. So my definition of choosing to be semi-pro is when you're able to start making money. Right.
Okay.
So because then at that point you're dedicating a portion of how you generate income, right, towards this craft, right,
Okay.
towards this craft. So getting to a place where you're entering tournaments and now getting, and then there, right there, by the way, like, I don't know if I can pull it up right now, but I shared with you, like, I started 33rd, and then the next tournament, I think it was 23rd, and then another tournament, it was in the top 18. Then, you know what I mean? So you gradually start to see how you're doing over time until eventually you start to place in money. Now, some of these tournaments are free. Some of these tournaments are paid, right? But so you have to decide, which tournaments you feel comfortable with either going in free or choosing to enroll, putting in your own money. Going pro in terms of like how that happens would be essentially being scouted or reaching out to a pro team for a tryout. And you can actually do that. So you can reach out to teams, you can start to submit. And what I would do is I would actually create, if you're using Twitch or using Mixer or even using your PS4 or Xbox platform, start recording clips of your gameplay. Start recording what you're doing, your biggest victories, right? And put it into a package. This is no different than creating like a speaker reel, right? If you're trying to be a speaker, or if you're an actor and actress, like putting that type of reel, like a demo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you start sending it out to companies who have teams, right? They get these stuff all the time, right? They might opt in to give you a tryout. What I like to do is you start from building the community. Eventually, you'll start coming across players that you'll build relationships with who may already be on a team, right? And instead of having to now cold reach someone, now you have someone who's directly inside who might be saying, hey, your game's pretty good now. Like, I'll see what I can do to bring you in for a tryout, right? So there's two different angles you can go, right? You can go the cold way and just kind of create your own reel, if you will, and start sharing it with people or sending it to certain teams. Or you continue to build community, find the right people, and see how they can get you in. One thing that I learned that I didn't realize when I first graduated from college back in 2008 was the gaming industry, while it was in transition, is also a very it can tend to be the kind of thing where you got to know someone.
Oh, most
right?
definitely. Yeah.
Right? That's the best way for me to word it,
Yes.
right? You got to, it's good to know someone.
Very colloquial, right? Yeah.
Yes, right?
Yes.
And there's some advantages and disadvantages of that, right? But accepting it for what it is, you now can get an opportunity to go into the community. That's why I always say, like, community is so important. The more it's no different than building your social media presence if you're a business person, right? Or if you're moving into a new town or a new city, like getting a layout of the people and the different organizations that are inside of that town that you can be a part of, right? It's allowing to increase your presence, because then when people see you, they might be like, wow, this person is definitely on the come up. Let's see if we can grab them, right? Especially
Right.
if you're in an ascension, right? You're on this crazy rise and you're winning these tournaments, or at least placing good enough where maybe having some mentorship and some coaching will just like completely change the game for you. They'll scoop you up, you know? And if not, like, you can also, sponsors will, right? Because now, you know, there's a lot of companies that are now interested in trying to form their teams too. So there might be a company like Pepsi coming in, for example, and saying, we're going to create our own team and we're going to start recruiting people, right? And so it may not necessarily be from the people who are already established, like the Red Bulls out there, but it could be from out of nowhere, right? Like, the way the world is happening right now, people are more creative, I believe, than ever before in terms of how they're going to pivot and completely change how they're showing up. So the more presence you create for yourself, the more opportunities for people to see you in that way.
That's exciting. Yeah, because I had an opportunity to meet the Quicken Loans here. We're in Detroit, Michigan, has a team. And I was very surprised that even though they're here in Detroit, their team is out in LA, where you are. Yeah. And that was just so intriguing to me, right?
Yeah.
And so when I asked them, I was like, how did you get away out to LA? They said, that's where the action's happening. How did that happen? I mean, in LA, and, you know, we're not seeing a lot of that action in Detroit.
Well, for one, like, LA is also known as like Silicon Beach, you know, so there's a lot of tech-centric stuff that's happening out there. But also here is EA Sports, NFL Network, there's Epic Games, you know, like, these are all the companies that are also putting a lot of money into the eSports. I mean, Epic has their own stadium that they're kind of arena that they use. So it makes sense that people are being scouted out in LA, and people are actually moving. Players are moving out to LA because they feel like they might get more visibility, which in some cases is good for them, and in some cases is not so great for the community that they're leaving behind, you know, because you still need those players inside of that community to put the community on the map, right? So
that makes sense.
Yeah, you still want, you know, those, it's once again, it's like the LeBron James story, right? Like, you know, him being in Akron, representing Akron, like, he also did understand that he did need to leave in order to build his presence even more, to then come back. Right. And really create that kind of imprint that he has today. Sometimes that's necessary, but it is important to know that, like, even though the action might seem or look bigger somewhere, it could be more beneficial for you to become the first in your community as opposed to the next in someone else's.
Okay. So how would you do that then?
Once again, so one is, if you don't have a community, you create one. Be the person to create the community. Start creating online experiences. One thing that I see that happens a lot now is people are doing this thing called dojos, or exhibitions, right? Where people can kind of come in, join a lobby, and start playing, and then they stream those experiences. Something as simple as that. You get a few players in, now you have a community. You start doing that on a regular basis. You start spreading the word. People start inviting their friends, and it just builds over time. Because COVID is what it is. And one of the things that I see that's been a light inside of this experience is it's forced us to really leverage the tools of technology in order to really create more community and a sense of closeness. And so this is a really great time to start building things from scratch if you don't have access or don't know where to access those things right now.
That's good, because I want to build a community here of gaming here in Detroit, because our school uses video gaming. We use that to try to attract students. And before COVID, we had a video game tournament at the library, but eventually we're going to move it online, because I just like gaming. I just think that there's a whole different group of people that enjoy it, that would be ideal for our school and what we do in cybersecurity. So
yeah, like a weekly dojo, start doing some tournaments, some buy-in. You can Matcherino is a site that where, like, if you do a tournament, people can kind of put an entry in for 50 cents on, not for free. So Matcherino, kind of, you know, they'll give you kind of I think they call them quests. So it might be like following certain people or doing certain things, and when you complete them, it puts like 50 cents into like the total payout, right? So it doesn't always have to be our money going in, right? There's places where people are willing to match or put free contributions into a
That's
prize pool,
interesting.
you know.
Okay.
Or like you can create tournaments to create awareness for a cause, whether it's the institute or for anything that's going on inside of the community. It's just those type of things that it actually, because of what we have now and the life that we're in right now, it's actually easier than ever to be able to do
Okay.
that, right? So if you have the
Okay.
community, all you got to do is build the virtual place, and then
Okay.
they will come, you
They
know.
will come. Okay. Okay. And then you had mentioned that this is your semi-proness is you have another business.
Yes,
How is that intermingling with that your current business and your gaming?
it's the entire platform. I mean, for me,
Okay.
coaching as a coach, my my life purpose that I've realized is to show how people can live a life that has achievement, but not at the sacrifice of joy and happiness. And
Okay.
that happiness is the center of how you can level up your life, and to
Hmm.
essentially treat life like a game. You know, and
Okay.
so that tournament that I talk about, that Red Bull, it was electric cancel, or I think it was another one, but um, that tournament for me, I'll never forget, because the moment that I was done and I was eliminated and I saw that I was 33rd, and then realizing how much fun I had, right? Getting to know the players and having the kind of fun that, like, I used to have fun when I invited my friends over as a little kid to my house and played video games all day, right? The connection was there, you know? It changed my life forever, because if I could experience this kind of joy and have access to it whenever I want, why can't that be the same for me in all parts of my life? So I started to look at how I can treat things like physical wellness, spiritual wellness, um, romance, the people in my life, the places that I have that I go to in my life, whether it's in my home or outside my home, mental wellness. How can I make it a game in a way that allows me to level up and have fun, right? How can I enjoy this process of improving my life and living in my purpose? And so that's when I discovered what I call the one-up rule, which everyone in gaming knows what the one-up is, right? And so the one-up rule states, you live your life like you found an extra one. Because in the dynamic of your life and in gaming, how you behave and interact with life when you're on your last life is very different than how you would interact if you got an extra life.
Oh, this is true.
You
Yes, it
know?
is.
Yeah,
You can be a little risky when you have an extra life.
yes, right? You can explore more, you can take your
Yes.
time, you can allow yourself to make mistakes, because you
Yeah.
know that you'll have an extra chance to get after it, right? But then in
Right.
your last life, you're just purely
You're
survival.
desperate.
Yeah,
Yes.
like this is
Yes.
pure survival, right? You miss out on the Easter eggs. You miss out on some of the hidden areas that might provide like the most fun. You don't really get to enjoy the craft and the nature of the game the way you would if you had more. So I'm all about, so my coaching practice basically creates this challenge-based lifestyle for you, where you gamify your life and you measure it in a way like a game, and allow yourself to have fun in whatever it is that you're in. There's 4 areas I work in: passion, play, purpose, and performance. You know, and being able to level up your life in that way, so you can play this game of life and win and be happy. The happiness is key, because what I've found in my client work is, if you're winning and you're not happy, that means you're playing someone else's game. And that to
Sure.
me is not how we get to live life. We get to play our own game, we get to win, and we get to be happy. That is non-negotiable. So, right. And so for me, the coaching became, how to show up in that way became very clear to me, thanks in part to that tournament, that first tournament that I entered. And then it was like, well, I need to just go to become, semi-pro, so I can hold that container. So now that joy and that happiness stays in my life because I set that parameter.
Okay. That makes sense. That's exciting. Um, to my audience, you have any questions that you want to ask Mr. Edwards? I'll unmute you so that you can ask whatever questions you need. So let me do that right quick. I'm just so intrigued by this, but I don't really get a chance to see. I'm just amazed though. I don't really see a lot of Black people whenever I go to a lot of the events, and which is why I brought you here, because we got to be able to figure out how we make that happen, where people can, since they do play video games, to go and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of the bigger games, we're not seeing our presence there. What I do tend to see is like in the fighting games, there is a larger presence. Now, what's ironic about that, or maybe not so much, is that like the payouts aren't as big.
Okay.
So, for example, Tekken, when they had their world tour last year, they had the finals. I believe, where were they? I forget exactly where they were, but they were out in Asia, and they had the finals, and the biggest payout was 250 grand, right?
But now, that's still a lot.
Which is a lot, right? No, it's totally a lot. Like, right? Like, let's not diminish that, right? It's totally a lot. And we get to, and you can look at Fortnite, right, and say, wow, like that's $2 million for that winner, right? And so the market determines the size, right? But here's the conflict that we got to like figure out is how can we get people to be interested in those bigger market games, right? Some of those bigger market games aren't really something that, in my experience, and also talking to other clients, like they don't really enjoy. They enjoy the 2K, the Maddens, and the fighting games, you know, and maybe Call of Duty, right? But that's still not enough to really create that kind of presence that we want on the bigger scale. Like FGC, I hope gets bigger, but right now, like it's just not in comparison, you know. And so, the competition to get into a place like Fortnite is a lot greater than the competition it is to get into the FGC. Right. And
I can only imagine, because I was noticing when they did the Dota and they did the crowdsourcing for the prizes, and the prizes immediately start going up because people were paying to put their money into the pool so that they would get bigger. Yeah. And that just so intrigued me. It was like, oh, wow. And they just took it to I think that first year they did it, went to like $30 million. And that just blew me out. I was like, oh my God, the money was just coming in from everywhere. But the community decided that they wanted more action, so they invested.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so one of the things I'm paying attention to is, you know, with all the money that's now being centered and focused and funneled towards Black organizations, communities, and funds, I'm curious to know if any of that will be geared towards eSports, because that, for me, as I look to eSports becoming increasingly big over the next 5 to 10 years, where will our presence really show in from a monetary standpoint? Are we going to be able to put in our funds into that place so we can have opportunities the way that we're talking about right now?
Yeah, that somebody has to take up that mantle in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
So if anybody has any questions, you probably want to unmute yourself so that you can go ahead and ask whatever questions that you have. I'm just so intrigued by the whole thing. Just the whole esports altogether. Particularly, I noticed when we started the pandemic, and they had the NBA 2K on ESPN, which, by the way, I watched. It was so amazing to me. It was like, this is crazy, right? We don't have real NBA, but we got NBA players playing NBA 2K. Yeah. And that was just so amazing to see how many people actually tuned in along with me, and to see that they were engaged and they were having conversations a week before the event, a week after the event. It was just really interesting to just see how people were so enlivened and engaged in that game. So if anybody has any questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
How you doing? Great job. Great presentation for today. I think it's a twofold issue. One, for our African-American community, a lot of times, you know, our families and our responsibilities may be like shunning the point of you sitting there playing a game, not understanding the dollar amount or the career opportunity. Because really, tournaments is no different than a tennis tournament, bowling tournament.
Exactly.
Ski shooting. There are people that make a career off of shooting or archery, and with
bowling, yes.
Tournament that goes on it. I think a lot of times we, in terms of, feel alone. You know, I know that the opportunity to play online and to play with anyone around the world has changed the game tremendously. So we're not playing by ourselves, but we are playing by ourselves when it comes to our inner circle, our family,
Okay.
our
Okay.
friends, the people that believe in what we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are there any groups, or I mean, I understand the groups, the tournament groups that exist, but are there any kind of social kind of groups that support one another that's going to be on the horizon, that is, got to come out the think tank to create?
It's funny you should say that, because
Yeah,
there's a
good question.
video game store on Greenfield. Man, I'm thinking of the name, and I went to visit. Really nice chairs, nice everything.
Building what?
Greenfield, right before you get to Grand River. I'm trying to think of their name, and I just visited them.
Montgomery Ward? That ain't a GameStop, is it?
No, it's not a GameStop. It's an actual game playing place. Let me tell you. I'll tell you who they are in just a second. And it's owned by African American, and he knows really nothing about gaming. He just saw that it was something that was coming up and coming, so he invested in it. So he has a nice little spot, and he actually, a lot of the high schoolers I noticed are always there. So every time I go there, I see a lot of teenagers. I don't really see a lot of more mature people there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, one of the things that I had to go into when I made this choice, because I didn't really know anyone. Like, when I was saying this even to my wife, like, she was excited because she saw that I was finally letting myself be happy, right? And so she was like, okay, go ahead. Like, I want you to do this. Right? Yeah, right. But like, outside of that, like, people still think it's ridiculous, right? When I started saying this back in, August and September, people thought it was ridiculous. And then now I have my friends like saying, wow, like, you actually are doing well, that's been the story of my life. So I accept it for what it is. That being said, going into finding these communities, going into Discord, like, for example, there's a guy on Mixer. I'm gonna give him a shout out here because he's a really great guy. His Mixer handle is MD Soul. So African-American guy around my age. He's a dad, served in the military, and he's all about the fighting game community. And inside of that, he has an entire group inside of Discord. So he connects his audience that watches him during the stream into the Discord, and he creates community there where we all can interact and connect. And when I went in there, I realized, wow, there are a lot of dads. There are a lot of dads here, right? There's a lot of Black people here, right? There's a lot of Black women here, right? There's a whole community that's being built that I was able to stumble across, and it just reasserted in my mind that I'm not alone in this, right? And so we don't need a lot of data to tell us that we're not alone. We just need to visually see it once and know that, like, it's enough, And so, what I would recommend is look for streamers that you connect with. Maybe you feel like they're like you in some way, or maybe you're doing a game that you enjoy playing and want to get into more. See if they have a Discord and they have a community, and just introduce yourself, start connecting, check in, start talking to the streamer, right? Like, they love the interaction. So be in the chat, connecting with the other people in the chat, and just start to, once again, build.
I'm trying to listen to some of my phone, like a Zoom meeting about how to become a gamer, get paid.
If you can mute your phone, whoever that is.
Us? It's Robert. Someone else.
I was probably talking to someone else. Yeah. But yeah, so, finding those communities and getting yourself in there is going to help a lot. A part of me feels like I also should say this because, I have a daughter, and maybe, I don't know who here might have children who are into video games. One of the biggest frames that we're continuing to overcome is this idea that eSports isn't active, right? We see sports, and we think because there's movement in that we don't think that other things like chess or archery or video games are a sport because they're not physically active. But the truth of the matter is, like, the way we invest in people, in our children, when we see that they have ungodly talent in a sport like basketball or football, and we're willing to invest monetarily, energetically, in terms of time and resources towards that, we get to do the same in video games, because the same pipeline exists for that as well, as I indicated with the scholarships available. And by the way, there are high schools now that are now creating programs and,
yes.
and electives around gaming. And there's coaches now working inside those high schools. So it's moving to where people can, where kids can get access to it at an earlier age, which is exactly the direction we want to go, if that's something that they want to really channel into.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. You know, I enjoy, like, when I've had a tough day, I enjoy kind of like sitting back and just kind of like playing like different games off of my phone that, you know, interest me from Play Store or whatever. So my question is that do they have, you know, games that you can literally make money off of as being a sole player without having to do a team type of thing to, you know, generate income?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So a lot of the competitive gaming, right, is typically like head to head, right? Team versus team or person against person. And that makes sense under the constructs of what sports are about. This is where, if you're like a kind of a solo person and you want to talk about, this is where streaming creates a really big opportunity. And so if you enjoy these solo games and you have an ability to engage an audience, maybe your personality is great or your ability to interact with and build community is awesome, you could actually also leverage, monetize your audience and the platforms such as Twitch, Mixer, even Facebook. Facebook has gotten into the gaming streaming game right now. So you can even go on Facebook and use the community you currently have in Facebook and start streaming and start looking to monetize, where people can subscribe to you. And when they subscribe to you, they actually give you money, and the platform takes like a small percentage of that. You can also make money from advertising.
Wow.
Where you can, like, depending on the amount of, you know, people watching your stream, you can have ads run just like a YouTube or anything else that you would watch, and you make money off of that, or you can get money from sponsorships, right? But it really starts from being able to build an audience first and then being able to monetize that. But you can do that solo too. All you have to do is, for example, if you want to know what that looks like, just go on Twitch and search, look under the just chatting topic, and you'll see all different types of creative solutions in which people who are by themselves are still being able to create community.
Did you say go on Twitch?
Yeah, Twitch, yeah, twitch.tv.
Oh, okay.
Which is the gaming streaming channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the name of the app I mentioned earlier? Natural something? What was the app that you were talking about, Bethany?
Are you talking about
something you had mentioned earlier? Something about Natural Reno and Quest.
Oh, got it. Matcherino. So Matcherino.
Okay.
I believe it's .com. I can double check real quick.
Okay, Matcherino.
Yeah, Matcherino.com.
Okay.
And you can, you know, when you start tournaments, you can have people put in money into their, basically it's like a way to create a community prize pool, right? So typically when big tournaments, they're sponsored by a certain company, they put in money towards the prize pool in addition to an entry fee that players run. This is community-based, and so the community gets to put in their own money towards a prize pool, but there's also these kind of side quests where if you follow people on Twitter or Instagram, like you can set it up the way that you want it to, and if you follow these people, then Matcherino then puts in 50 cents for every follow, 50 cents for every, you know, those type of things. Or you might put up gear for people to buy, merchandise. It's kind of like, you know how like sometimes JetBlue will send you like these surveys to do for JetBlue points. You know, it's like that, right? It'll ask you to like do things, and then you get just money that Matcherino then puts into the prize pool.
Oh, and then I just wanted to interject about that gaming lounge. I couldn't think of the name, but I found it. It's called Player versus Player. And it's actually on Wyoming and Puritan.
Oh, okay.
I went to visit. It was pretty an interesting little place. But just, you know, call over and check it out. And I think there's one other one, and I can't remember the name of it. But beautiful place too, where you can find community to go and hang out. And they have tournaments every now and then as well.
So while she's looking at that, Thomas, do you know, or is there a suggested? I know I understand the answer to this question is probably based on what you enjoy playing, but what are the top 3 or the top 5 kind of competitive games? You know, are games evolving, you know, from Tekken to football, Madden to, you know, NBA basketball? Does it evolve like that with players and with the culture?
It's a really good question. Like right now, what tends to be the most popular are first-person shooters and turn-based strategy games. You know, like those.
Wow.
And also just MMORPGs, right? So massive multiplayer online RPGs, right? So those are tends to be like the big ones because that draws the biggest crowd. You have most people participating in the experience. And then after that, there's sports, and then there's the fighting games. And then yeah, I mean that's essentially it, really, right now in terms of like what are the top. It does evolve. It does evolve because if you remember back in like the early 2000s, like Unreal Tournament was kind of the hotness back then, right? And this is also around the time when Halo first came out, as Halo Combat evolved. Then there was also Rainbow Six, SOCOM, right? Like these, Call of Duty was still around then too. I think it was Call of Duty 2, right? Like they were still there, right? But they definitely do evolve. Now Call of Duty has Warzone, which is kind of their competitive response to Fortnite, right? But Call of Duty always had a small competitive gaming culture. Now it's completely bigger now because of Warzone. Fortnite's trying to do the same thing with Valorant just to create a little bit of diversity in another vertical for them to make money, right? But also to create even another type of community. You know, NBA and Madden will always cement itself because the culture allows it to, right? Like the players are playing these games, right? So they are just as influential in us wanting to play those games too. So it's a combination of both. You know, it's a combination of seeing the trajectory of popularity, how easy it is to pick up the game, and also like who's playing the game. Like, is your favorite basketball player playing 2K? Because chances are you're going to want to play too. You know, like when the streamer Ninja was playing Fortnite and then all of a sudden he got connected with Drake, that changed his entire life. Now this guy has his own Adidas footwear line.
Right.
Now this guy got pulled from Twitch and now has a multi-million-dollar deal with Mixer. Right? Like, listen, he was streaming for years before this happened. So a lot of people are going to see that and think that was like an overnight lucky type of thing. But this guy was streaming for years, maybe even almost a decade before that opportunity happened. You know, so it's like keeping things in perspective, but also just being aware of like who's actually playing these games, you know, in combination to like what you enjoy playing. Does that answer your question, Matt? You know.
Now we said we would have Thomas to 1 o'clock. It is 1 o'clock. So if there's no more questions, I'd like to say I immensely thank you for coming to us. I learned more about esports. I'm gonna have to have you back because I have a lot of questions on myself as it relates to the business side of esports. Somebody has one question. Well, Abdul, could you unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yes, ma'am, I have one question. Okay, you have 16 players, right? So my question is, how do people know that what they're doing if they're playing video game? And sometimes they don't know what they're doing. What's between that?
Wait, repeat the question again so I understand it clear.
I was saying, asking, I said that if people mastering the game, you have 16 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're doing. And some people don't.
Yeah.
Because they get confused when playing game. What's the difference between that?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So I'm gonna try to answer it in the way that I feel like I heard it. So what's interesting about that is sometimes like, and this is different when you're online, right? Like when you're online, you don't know who you're gonna play, and if they're playing with the same mindset as you are, right? Like as if you're trying to play competitively, but they're playing casually and only care about winning, how they play is going to be very different than how you would traditionally face someone in a competitive environment. And so I had to go through this for a couple months in order for me to find peace with this, but you still can find opportunities where you can learn from those experiences while not taking it so personally as it pertains to your advancement and your level of improvement. But the way to overcome that is, once again, now, when you, let's say, for example, you fight someone, for me, like when I fight someone in Tekken and I play against them and they're really good and I enjoyed the competition, I'll friend them and say, hey man, like I'd love to just, you know, play against you. We'll just set up a lobby and we'll just play each other for whatever. And that actually works too. So you can start to, as you start to play people and you get an idea of who's playing it the way that you, that will support you, you can start to friend and communicate with them and ask them to play with you in a private lobby or something like that, where you actually can build not only build a relationship, but also develop your skills against someone who's your competitive equal.
Okay.
And then I thought, Mr. Henderson, Don, you had a question as well?
Yeah, I did. Got a couple grandnephews, son-in-law, you know, and other people in the family who might be interested if they're not already doing it. How do they, because I was working, so I apologize if I repeat the question, but, you know, just getting into that arena where, you know, people can earn money playing, you know, as well as, you know, once you guys reconvene with business side of it, you know, we love to create a game streaming, you know, channel with our network. And Ida and I, you know, we'll discuss that some more and see if it's something that we can do to help, you know, alleviate a lot of this, you know, the things that's going on in the communities. You know, people are missing opportunities because they don't think they have opportunities.
Yeah.
And I'm open because I'm gonna tell you one of the things that I noticed, and Tina had asked the question, they're starting to do a lot of mobile gaming, like Call of Duty, even though we had this pandemic, actually lost a mobile tournament during the pandemic. And I think the prizes was like $1 million, which I thought was amazing when they said they had like 100 million people had downloaded the Call of Duty mobile app so that they could participate in the tournament. I've never seen that before. And it was like, wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, and this is the power of that we're going to start seeing also as a trend of cross-platform play. Like Fortnite already has it, Call of Duty has leveraged it really well, PUBG, right? Like cross-platform play where it becomes even more inclusive, which allows more people to come in and play the game. Like that's how the market now gets to become huge in those references. But to go back to your question, Don, like it's being able to know what resources are available and then just positioning it in front of your children, right? Your grandchildren and your nephew, right? So it's like going to, and you'll see the replay inside of this, I share it again, but you can go to smash.gg to look into online tournaments to get yourself into, to see where you can kind of see like how good are you really in a competitive environment. Discord.app, where you can start to go into communities and build relationships with other gamers like you. And then you can also start to watch other people's streams, like other gamers' streams of the game that you like to play, or watch YouTube videos of matches or analysis or research or studies on the game. Like people really break it down into such a T that you think you're watching someone talk about, you know, basketball or football in that way.
The commentators.
Yeah, right. So the gaming gets broken down in that type of way that helps them understand more. Because it's one thing to practice, but to master the mechanics. But it becomes another thing to understand the overarching strategy of the game and your role inside of it. And once you're able to understand that, no matter what game you're playing, that gives you a competitive advantage over most people who are just playing the game.
And I was saying, if you haven't had the time to go on Twitch, I just went on Twitch because I was intrigued by how it's, first of all, Amazon bought Twitch, and just to see how it's growing like a weed, because people are setting up channels and things on there to talk about, to basically narrate their games. So I go on there sometimes just to see what people are doing and kind of get a sense of where the industry is going. And it's just so amazing, you know, what you find in that whole platform.
Well, Twitch is even bigger than that, because like First Robotics, the robotics systems are using Twitch, which is an international body. So every school that participates in robotics usually uses Twitch for their gaming during their March Madness tournament. So academically, within the structure of the schools, and I know urban schools participation is a little thin, but in suburban schools, you have you have 100 members within that robotic team.
Yeah,
they're using Twitch every day like it's Microsoft Word. So that's one of the barriers that we're having. But I do have one quick question. Now, with the comment that you just said, Thomas, that means there's a plethora of tools. I mean, anybody can get in anywhere, whether if you go mobile, whether if you buy PS2 or buy Xbox, or I see the PS5 has just came out. Or do you have an idea of where someone should get in and at an equipment level that at least be prosumer? You know, prosumer, where they can function, not where you piecing some stuff together, you crippling and limping your way along trying to do it, actually able to compete and function.
The best way I can position it is you need a console first, right? Because you need a console to play the game. So you can either wait until the new consoles come out, the Xbox Series S or the PS5, they come out later on this year. If you don't have a system now and you want to get one now, I highly recommend getting a refurbished one. Get one that's refurbished. You don't need to invest that much money into a new console, especially if it's going to become a little obsolete in a couple years. Twitch, actually, I just got an email last night from Twitch, where they have their own, because the way it used to work is you would need some type of streaming software to run, so you can put like overlays on your stream to entice people to be a part of the conversation. Twitch actually last night launched their own software service embedded inside of Twitch.
Which
so now,
is
which becomes easier than ever now for anyone to start streaming. Now, how you stream, it depends on what you have. So if you use an Xbox or PS4, you can literally use the Twitch app and start streaming that way. If you want them to see you, which always helps, then you need to have a webcam device connected to it. A workaround that I've seen that has worked is people would use their phones and position them where they can see you and the game as you're playing, and you just need to turn and look as you're playing and interacting with the audience. That's a prosumer setup that you can do as well. PC, for me, in my experience, I've seen as the most expensive setup. So I would only invest in that if you feel like you're at that place where, I mean, in my experience, I would wait until you start making money before you start investing more into it, and just start at the minimum, right? The MVP really is the console and a way to people to see you inside of the streaming experience.
And then my thing is, you pick what you like. I think when you started this presentation, you had said it's your passion, it's your love, and you get enjoyment. Because every game, there are all type of games that are being played. Like just recently, chess is just really growing on Twitch, which is what kind of got me going to Twitch. Because now you're getting younger people who are really having competition with chess, but online chess. And so you find there are a lot of channels on Twitch now with chess that you didn't see a couple years ago. You know, so you find your passion and you just stick to it. And if there's nobody else around, then you kind of groom your own community based on what you love and you keep it moving.
Yeah. I mean, there's channels for people who only play retro games, right? On the old consoles, right? Because that's their passion. They're able to monetize based on that experience, you know? So it is very important to know the game, but also understand the intrinsic value of your motivation, right? That's like the key. Those two together is the recipe for success and happiness. Because if you're just playing a game, because if you're playing Fortnite because that's where the most money is, but you don't really like Fortnite, your level of happiness and the sustainability of your performance isn't going to last. Because at some point you're going to burn out and you're going to bottom out and you're going to say, I'm done with this, you know, and it's not going to be a great experience for you. Like this gets to be fun for you guys first, and then you end up monetizing from it in the way that you're meant to.
So pick your game. Pick the game you love and you roll with it. And it's whatever it is, you know, you just never know where it's going to come. Like the chess got its surge because one of the grandmasters started a channel on Twitch. And if somebody had told me in a couple months he would have 8 million subscribers, I wouldn't have believed you. But he has, and people are just coming in droves because they want to see him because he's the youngest American to ever win grandmaster status. And now chess is cool on Twitch. So you pick your poison. If you're like me, I like Scrabble. So eventually I'm going to do, you know, I'm going to create a Scrabble channel where I'm going to put some money up and we're going to do some Scrabble, right? So you pick your poison.
And that's why I say, like, we're all gamers, right? Like, we're all gamers. We enjoy the fun in some level of competition and a competition, whether it's with ourselves or with other people. But what Twitch allows us to do, and what this market overall allows us to do, is we get to spotlight it, right? We get to, like, say, all those peeps who love Scrabble, I'm about to do a Twitch Scrabble channel right now, and you're gonna see people who love Scrabble or Words with Friends come in droves to come and play this game, right? What we're doing is we're creating platforms and experiences that give ourselves permission to express our love and our joy of the game. And now we're and people on the outside are seeing this and saying, I bet we can monetize off of this. Let's put some sponsorship. Let's put some visibility around this. And then it gives us an opportunity for us to then get some of that money too, right? But it really starts with just promoting from a place of, I love this game, and I know there's people out there that love this game too. You're my people. Come to my home and let's play this and let's celebrate this joy together. And if you always lead with that, everything else then gets built on top of that. And that's an unshakable foundation that will never crumble no matter what happens as you're building on top of it. That's why I started off with the game plus motivation, because that for my clients, and I hope for you guys, that's the foundation that will never crumble.
And that's good. I'm going to end it here, and I was so glad to have you. But maybe we need to have you come back and just talk about Twitch all by itself, because that's like the whole concept of streaming and gaming, streaming and community is really big business, and that would probably suit with Don as well. But I thank you so much, Thomas. It has been a pleasure. I've learned a lot today, and just really, really excited and really enjoyed your presentation.
Yeah, so have I. Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to thomasedwardsjr.com. And I would love to be back here to have another conversation about this. Like, I can talk about this forever, as you can see. So whenever you want me back, I'm here.
Alrighty. Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.